Well, hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Are we doing well for Thursday? All right, got a few nods out there. That's good. Well, welcome back to part 2 of our technology talk. I'm going to introduce Dr. Gilbert here in a second, but I think let's have a word of prayer, and then we'll begin. Thank you, Heavenly Father, just for this opportunity. We can come back together again, hear from the good doctor, and he can share some wisdom with us tonight and help us as we journey, Lord, with our kids and navigate this crazy world that we live in now. But God, we know one great thing is that greater He that is in us and He that's in the world. So we have a lot to be thankful for and a big God to trust. So God, just give us a good time tonight of fellowship and learning. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you, sir. I'll be upstairs. I'm doing sound tonight, too. So if you hear me sing, that's me.
You gotta run. Yeah, you gotta run to get the microphone. Run. Gotta check my phone for a strike. Okay, so we're going to give a quick overview of last week and then kind of dive into this week to build on that basically today. So excited to hear kind of where you're at and maybe what's happened this week. It's been fun to talk to a few of you and see the fallout this past week. So one of the things we started with was looking at this picture here. This is us. This is your brain. This is us when it comes to the content of data that's just on us. It never stops. So we're very cluttered, and we need to actually figure out something to do about that. The data that's out there, the access to just too much information, that's a problem. Now, this is the one that worries me the most. The reality of we're on devices, our relationship with devices. What we're modeling is part of it, so what you and I do, and realizing the impact on our kids, but then what they're doing and what their peers are doing. Little things like, I know for me, my son went to youth group, and one of his biggest struggles was at youth group, he didn't understand a single thing anyone was talking about because he didn't have access to those games and to that tech, so he felt even more out of place. So how far do you go with that? So we ended up letting him get something, play the games, and then seeing how dumb they are. And he all of a sudden, that became a non-issue. So knowing where to draw the line and when to take a step forward, even in technology, is important. So that this doesn't happen. The access here, and what I called this, remember what it was? Yeah, it's a porn portal. If we're not careful, what we've done is we've given them something that's too much. For some of us, it's too much. And so being able to talk about that, being able to do like I did, go to your phone and type in porn and hit enter, which is scary, I know. Do it in front of your kids. And then show them that click videos or click images and your world's a very different world. The fact is that they have access to it here, they have access to it at any friend's house, basically everywhere. So it's not about keeping them away from those things, it's about stewardship. It always comes down to that word stewardship. And the better we equip them and teach them, the better they're going to be stewards outside of our presence when they're in different settings. That's the goal, right? Not that they behave when they're with us only. It's who are they when they leave our presence? Who are they at someone else's house? Now, the part that then this becomes even worse, the example. All the way from that, literally them becoming mini us's, mini me's. But the part that worries me for you and I to start with, that's to me where it starts, is this solitude. Like even when I got here, I was standing outside and just standing there, reminding myself that I could pull my phone out right now and I could look up something, because there's all these important things to look up right now. And in that millisecond, my brain goes to what? If you stand outside, what do you hear? You hear the rain, cars driving by, birds. And that's exactly the first thing I grabbed onto was the sounds of the different birds. And it's little things like that actually does something to us. Physically alters who we are. Being present in that moment. what's happening to our kids in terms of their access to technology, the use of technology, the stewardship of technology, is they can't hold a conversation. That's what's happening as they get older. They will not be employable, is actually what we're seeing in the data. They will go to work, and then they will have accommodation after accommodation from work because they can't have a disagreement in person. They have to go back and do it through the screen. That's becoming huge right now. And what to do with that? How do we actually rest in solitude? Find rest. Find that peace, really that passes all understanding. This is the place that we're refreshed, that we find new ideas. But the other word that kind of goes along with this is leisure. But it's more than just the things you do. Is it okay for you to binge watch Stranger Things Season 2?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great way to spend an afternoon if you've got all this other stuff done. If. Now here's one of the things that I've learned. I wake up in the morning and I'm going to work myself till I fall dead every day. That's my MO. Thinking that's actually smart, realizing that's not healthy. But I've learned that if I switch to something else, so it's a different part of my brain. If I'm working with people, I switch to something more hands-on. That's my rest. And it's like, oh, I actually do get rest. I just don't sit in front of a TV and stare or watch a game. What they found with men's brains, especially with sports, is watching a sporting event, watching a game, it puts their brain into a place of rest and it restores. Can I go too far? Yeah. So can everything else. So it's learning to have that stewardship of, I don't know, I can't relate to men like this, like the man that goes fishing. It's at Safeway, come on, we can get to, I don't have patience. But yet if you actually look at most men's brains, it's actually really critical. That kind of repetitive motion and it physically alters the body and brain for health. Different kind of repetitive things. Do you know people that knit or crochet? Same thing actually in a sense, but the repetitive motion does something to the brain. Today I was in class talking about abnormal psych, autism. And I was making that connection too. It's like I was trying to help the students see that you're not that far away from this person over here, how we've in some sense ostracized. Their brains just wired a little different. But let me show you how close you are. We went through the repetitive stuff that people do, and it's like, this is actually unhealthy. Their brains wired different, so they need, in a sense, a different set of rules. So how can we help them succeed? That's the goal. I want to help each person with each even mental health issue succeed. Leisure is one of those. The kind of leisure that you actually do. What's happened with technology is our leisure quickly has shifted to it's almost only indoor and screen related. And so what I want to do for you, and we'll get to this later on, but what are some of those things of leisure that would actually expand that horizon? Like right now, I'm looking at the weather app constantly, but I guess I don't know why, because it ain't changing. Because we leave tomorrow at 5 for a 3-day camp out, and it's like, it's going to be a wet one. So Monday night, we were learning how to put up rain flies over your dining stuff, because basically it's outdoor home ec. And I cannot wait. I need it so bad. The closer to Friday, the closer we get to Friday, the more I'm just excited to go out. What's funny is I'm not an outdoors person. I've learned to be because I have 2 sons. God has a sense of humor. Because when I found out I was having sons, I cried. I did not want sons. I only wanted daughters. Because I could do the daughter thing. The sons scared me. And God knows. So after 2 sons, wow, I'm getting the son thing down, and then I get a daughter, it's like, dang it. No, I'm just kidding. I was so excited, my little girl, and she's my little girl, I love her to death. She's a different world. And one of the things is, are we adaptable to even the kind of leisure that our different kids and different personalities need? That's a really critical one. And then the last thing we talked about, one of the things was this. This becomes And the way the whole setup is to draw you in and draw you in, draw you in. One of the things I tried to do last year, and I'm still in the process of trying to do, is I've switched to a paper planner. The Michael Hyatt Full Focus Planner. And it's when you wake up in the morning, you go fill it out, you get it off your device, what's my plan? Because what do most of you do when you open your phone to click on maybe calendar?
Check this first.
Yeah, do you ever get there? How many times do we pull it out and we never make it to where we actually intended to go? I was going to look at the weather, and the next thing I know, it's 7 minutes later, and I've been looking at Instagram pictures. It's that kind of thing. Where do we go? We become our worst enemy with that. So it's learning hacks like that, which we'll kind of mention coming up here as well. So this other one, we kind of mentioned it last time, but to go into the depth of it, is conversation. It's just conversation. Just that word, conversation. What our kids think they're having are not conversations. But our brain is literally tricked into thinking they are. All these texts back and forth and all these messages, we feel like we've been social. And there's something wrong. And what we're seeing is where it's playing out is mental health issues. It's playing out in the way that they see themselves in relation to society or to others. There's something missing. And this is a big deal. We have a spike increase when it comes to mental health concerns. And we need to go there. We need to address that. That's critical. Conversation is important. And it's not this anti-technology, you have to have every conversation in person kind of thing. It is a balance of that. Because of technology, we have access to more people, and in more ways. It's actually pretty neat. My wife and I text off and on, and it's been great to have that. I would say most of my clients in counseling, it's a rule. You cannot text each other because they're too immature, and they're reading between the lines, and they get mad over the text, and it becomes this. So that's not a tool they should use. What's yours? What kind of tools can actually enhance your life? Because that's really the question for us as the parents in our whole life, but also these little kids that we're growing up into young adults, that they need that stewardship. One of the questions that someone asked on the cards was, what about my 17-year-old? I can't take my phone away from him, can I? And it's like, well, if you're paying for it, you can until he's 30. But I'd say no, not necessarily. It's you meet them where they're at, and at 17, in a sense, the cooking is done. Here's who you have, and it's conversations, but it's their stewardship now. That's a difficult transition. One of the things I've seen is a lot of 17-year-olds who've had zero access to technology, and what's the guarantee that they will do when they do have access? It's all or nothing. It's binge. But even Tuesday, I'm teaching a class, and I reached over to hand the roll to the front person sitting in the very front, and I lay it on the table, and there's your phone watching a TV show. And so what's interesting is it's a really difficult class. It's a class called trauma therapy. It's not an easy one content-wise to handle. So in some sense, I'm like, if you need to check out, that's great, but it's interesting how that's the way we check out. We go into some other world. Movies, TV shows. Is it always bad? No. I don't know about you, but when I read the Harry Potter series, I kind of grieved the loss of Harry when the last book ended. Finally, I had to read it because of all the stuff out there saying how bad it was. I can't have an opinion until I actually read them, and so I did. If you have your favorite TV show and it ends, it's kind of hard to let them go. They become a part of you, which also should scare you just a little. Because this needs to be more than digital or this kind of connection. Great website to watch The Point or Breakpoint. Sorry, not Breakpoint. Internet isolation is happening right now. Where our kids, even sometimes us, we think we're connected. We're not. And there's a fallout of that. There's a consequence of that. And what do we do about it, basically? You're isolated, but you don't feel it. Are your kids going to hear you? Like if you go home right now and some of you did this last week, and start telling them that, okay, this is over, go play. How's that work? Has anyone tried that, where you've tried to take things away and they look at you like, what do I do? Because a lot of this is what we train them to rely on and to do and to need. Same for Xbox or any other entertainment system. That becomes a relationship that needs that stewardship, which is critical. Now, put this up here last time and it totally messed up there. Remember the addiction? Addiction is a condition in which a person engages in use of a substance or in a behavior for which the rewarding effects provide a compelling incentive to repeatedly pursue the behavior despite detrimental consequences. Is the internet, phones, all these things evil? I'd say absolutely not. They're amazing resources. Can they become something? Is alcohol evil? Does a lot of damage to a lot of people, but it's not. Actually, the money is the root of all evil, right? Keyword. It's not money at all. Money is neutral. It's what we do with it. It's our relationship with it. That's critical. It's a critical connection. Same for food. Food is a relationship. And so how I relate to food goes into a lot of potential disorders, and this is an important balance. Rule of thumb that I've heard is you walk in the grocery store and you stay on the edges and you leave. Don't go in the middle. It's a great that's difficult for most of us. Try certain things like that and you find yourself getting healthier physically and things change. Try getting outside more and doing something physical. I had doctors tell me that in my early 20s, they basically said no activity whatsoever outside, no exercise, no anything because of health condition. And then I meet my wife in my late 20s, and so I went to the gym with her for support, and I'd sit and read a book next to her on an exercise bike or swimming or something. And I found out later that was not supportive. That was just depressing, and she wanted to hurt me. And then later to find out too that those doctors were very wrong. That I just needed a minor amount, and you need to be careful with how much. And what do I mean from all that? It's hard enough to listen to. These were very well-intentioned doctors. Like, my job even here now is to give you some ideas that you go implement. And I would bet you each family would implement things in a little different way. Which is something that the more you talk about that, the more you might gain ideas from friends. Or if we're like good Christians, we'll actually make everyone do it our way. Just kidding, don't do that. Careful with that. It becomes that, right? If they're not doing it our way, then judgment. Or comparison. Why aren't we doing it like them? There's something wrong with us. So finding that balance with how you do phones, when kids get phones, the access to phones, the use of television, computers, video games is really, really important. And so we went into this. This is really important for you to think through. I like this way to think about it. You've got a code, vision. Code is basically like where I came from. Your vision for the future and a cause to fight for. And then these 4 areas. Your health, purpose, or soul, relationships, and work. What would you, how would you fit tech into these? Before I fill in those other ones, that's going to be important for you to think about. In the sense of health, I actually just signed with a new life insurance. I have a really hard time getting stuff like that because of my health history. I finally got another one where it was like, okay, based off my movement with my watch, my premiums go down for life insurance. That is cool because I can't even touch the premiums that most people get. Mine are higher because of risk. And my wife's rule is I can't ride a motorcycle without life insurance for her, or for me. Then she asked me about, well, what about life insurance for her? I'm like, you don't work. And she goes, I know, just. And And she goes, well, I said, all I need is $350 for an eHarmony subscription. And she just smacks me and walks away. Just kidding. Oh gosh, I don't know what I would do without her. But these things become so critical. How do you manage? I love that idea of diving into Richard Foster, is that the right name? The spiritual disciplines. Every few years, that's one of those books that I read. What was the name of that book? Celebration Discipline. Great. Oh, just powerful, deep. Help you think through solitude, think through silence, think through... I never thought I could fast, because to me that seemed stupid not to eat. And it's been funny with health issues and doctors, so these learned people saying, you need to actually once a month fast and let your gut rest. And I go, there's something biblical wrapped up in that. There always is, by the way. And all the stuff that these smart heads, talking heads say, there's always something biblical wrapped up into it, if it's solid. And I love that. That's where I learned that all good research points to the gospel, points to Scripture, backs up Scripture. So if you see some research that doesn't line up with Scripture, I would say look at that research really carefully. Who they were studying, the bias of the researcher. It's interesting. It's something to think about. Because all the findings that we have, even historic findings, all point to the truth of the gospel and of the Bible. It's incredible. I love that. Yay, there's my book. I have 250 pounds of it delivered tomorrow. It didn't make it by today. So annoying. And then I get an email saying it's stuck in weather because of hurricanes or something. Not hurricanes. A blizzard hitting Colorado. The last thing that we talked about was the philosophy of technology, a proposal here, in which you focus your online time on a small number of carefully selected and optimized activities that strongly support things you value, and then happily miss out on everything else. It's the happily miss out on everything else that a lot of us have trouble with, especially our kids. If you think of school, what happens from when they leave school till the next day is a lot. And they're missing out if they're not engaged. What does the balance look like there? Is it all or nothing? Should there be absolutely no tech from when they leave school? It's also the time that a lot of kids are bullied, and a lot of kids are harmed in amazingly creative ways. What do you do with that? Because that's the decision you're going to have to keep making. Not making one makes the decision too. So doing things just as is. But how do you help them succeed? Is this the best way to use technology to support this value? Now you have to have value. It's kind of what we kind of ended on last time. You have to have a value. And if you value family time, if that's a value, then you guard it. If you're a family that loves playing games together, then you have some structure and some time. Family dinners. It works really well for some, and schedule-wise doesn't work as easy for others. That's fine. Finding those times to connect. Are you a family that just loves to watch movies together? I mean, and I've you walk in my living room, we have a very big TV. And then I have a drop-down screen with a projector, 105-inch, with my surround sound where the sub can be felt. Because if you can't feel the sub, it's not loud enough. Drives my wife crazy. That's me. I love that. And love having kids over and having groups over and watching movies together. And it's not about tech being bad. It's, again, what you do with it. That's really, really important. And it becomes this. Is this the best way to use technology? Now, thinking of that word leisure, let me give you some just ideas and suggestions. Here's 3 of them. Prioritize demanding activities over passive consumption. What does demanding mean? It's got to take something out of you. Paired with this one, produce valuable things in the physical world. creating something. It cracks me up how many young people especially go, you're a professor and you know how to fix things? Yeah, it's called A Book for Dummies at Home Depot. If you don't know how to do it, pick up a book. There's one made for every subject. And it's also called just following someone else. I bought an old house in the 1800s in Georgia, knob and tube wiring. It's 3 electrical boxes turned into one. How? Take the risk. And I had people mentoring, guiding. It wasn't just on your own. Something goes wrong with the car, I'm a cheapskate. I'm going to figure it out myself. There's a manual. Follow the instructions. And then you realize you need strength and you call a friend. We're not teaching these things. The valuable things. Talked to my son years ago about, hey, what if I get you a really old car that you fix up by the time you're 16? Nothing. He's like, that's weird. Why? But he just turned 13. And I threw that out again, and he's like, that would be awesome. I said, well, let's think about that for your 14th birthday. Get some, you think what you want. Start obsessing a little about this. What's a little $1,000 or something we could find that you then, for when you're 16. I don't know if that'll happen, but it's neat to see him think through something that's not what game am I going to win this, finish. Seek activities that require real-world structured social interactions, that social piece. It is not the online. And what we're seeing is even it literally tricks the brain to think I have the social when I did not have the social. And so there's this and a letdown. There's something missing. There's something missing every time. And so I feel like I'm engaged, but I'm getting more and more disengaged. More and more lost in myself. Fix or build something. Changing your car oil. Installing a new light fixture. Every time I do something around the house, almost every time, it's come on one of the kids. Figure out how to screw that in, how to fix that, how to... although our dishwasher went out last week, and we've pretty much told them we're not fixing it. Because you need to stop whining and in order to do the dishes again. We used to not have a dishwasher, so it's been funny to watch them fight over that activity. At first, Miley was like, this is so much fun! Not so fun anymore. Yeah, it's not about fun. It's don't get the dishes dirty. It's probably a better goal. But I ordered the motherboard, and that was in it. So I'm one of those that's going to order every part in the thing until I find it and probably spend more. But build custom furniture. There's some amazing people with amazing talent, and they're not passing it down to their kids. That's a hard one. Being able to teach something valuable, a skill that you have, is really the apprentice model. Start a garden. Schedule low-quality leisure. So it's actually, the low-quality leisure is going to be those things like sitting and binge watching something. Like being intentional about, here we're going to aim low, but here we're actually going to aim, being able to be intentional, that's really important. Join something. The book a number of years ago called Bowling Alone, so sociology book about that thick that you can summarize probably in a handout, but it's the back of the book is scary. It's graph after graph after graph of all the organizations that are on the decline. Like, do you know very many people in a bowling league anymore? And that's the premise of it is, the Knights of Columbus and the Kiwanis and all these things, the memberships are just plummeting. And our society is being affected by that. So join something is really critical. Embracing slow media, that's a concept from Germany, that they were pushing this. The slow media is what it sounds like. Books. Slower consumption. From the video games, what we see with kids is the fast-moving images, especially younger, actually make it difficult for you to hold a conversation because you're boring, basically. But at the same time, we're even finding with maybe senior citizens that sometimes playing a video game actually gets their brain and mind and body going. The Wii was a pretty cool invention when they came out with motions and So you learn that you can bowl sitting on the floor and just kind of do this and fake it. Although my father-in-law, the first time he did bowling on the Wii, he hurt himself. I was like, oh my God, he pulls it out. Kind of a good one, but delete social media from your phone. If that's the place you go first, and you're deciding to control that, only go on maybe on your desktop or your laptop, your phone is actually the first place that they're targeting to get you when it comes to access to content and consumption. Delete things like that. Delete YouTube. Delete things on your phone, where your phone becomes actually simpler and simpler and simpler. That's a potential tactic that can help. But those things don't actually really change the heart, I would say. And this is one of those, I guess, difficult. I hesitate to even show this part or talk about it this way, but this is from Digital Minimalism. He proposes this: define which technologies are optional to you. So there's some that are required for work and things that we have to do and have to use. It's not that, but stop using these optional ones for 30 days. And so what we've actually found is people do it all the time. They do a detox. They don't do it for a while, but then I asked this last time, what do they do at the end of the 30 days? They're right back to it, then some. Got to make up for lost time. Got to catch up on everybody. But it's the idea that, no, I'm going to actually only add back what's important, what lines up with my values. Because hopefully during those 30 days, you actually found new things to do with your time. It's like, wow, I had that boat in the garage that I've been wanting to work on, and I've not had the time. Well, no, I've chosen not to give time to that because of my other things that distract me. I had a book I wanted to read, but I don't have time. No. You have time. It's what other things are taking away from that. When's the last time I went out on a date with my husband or wife? You have time. It's priorities. It should be very, 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 very often, by the way. My wife and I, when we had our first, I think it was a Sunday, we were out on a date by Friday. And think about that for a young mom, too. We only had about an hour window because between feedings, so we went off and got food and came back. My mom had Alex. And then we learned quickly that Thai food is not a good idea because breast milk. And the next week we learned that Mexican wasn't a good idea. And then we started messing everything, which was more fun. But gotta make that a priority. It's kind of like if you really want to read the Bible, if it's not a priority, that's the last thing you do. If you really want to have exercise as part of things, it needs to be higher on the list, not towards the bottom where it gets nicked quickly. And so this becomes important to then decide what to reintroduce. What's your priorities going to be? Now, here's some just stats to think about. 73% of teens, 13 to 19-year-olds have smartphones. 93% of guys, and 62% of girls will see pornography before age 18. The amount of girls that are actually on the increase of the, not just see, but consumption, regular consumption, that's on the increase. Because women now, young girls now, are thinking they're supposed to be this hypersexual person. And by choice, like making these choices, it's feeding this, distorting everything. 70% of teens admit to hiding what they do online from parents. And that's where we come in. How many of us think, this is rhetorical right now, how many of us think that our kid, that's not my son or that's not my daughter? Because how many of them have learned ways to hide everything that they're doing from you? It's something we really don't want to face. Does it mean go snooping all the time and lying and finding their diary? And I'd say there's time and place for that. There's time and place there's something wrong and we need to find out what's wrong. But I think there's this weird balance of what's privacy and what's because I love you and being safe. So having some technology rules, which we'll get into in a minute. Facebook says it's putting an end, this is from March this year and into revenge porn once and for all. And basically the article is saying, show me how they're doing this. They say they are, but this is on the rise. Where guy and girl are dating, he ends up with a bunch of pictures of her. They break up. And if you don't do more, or you don't stay with me or something, I'm going to put this online. What's interesting to me is to think of the ethics and the ethos behind those of us, because it can be any of us even here that might be doing this. But we do those pictures, and we take those pictures, and we know that on a device, or even transferring from one device to another, they're fair game. What's scary is 8 to 17 and under, that's child pornography. And so your kid gets caught with something, them or the others, that's child pornography. That's a big deal. And it's not a big deal to scare, this is a big deal to be talking about often. It just needs to come up in conversation often. Because in the end, we're hopefully creating young men and women that actually are making decisions, wise decisions. Number of children going to the ER with suicidal thoughts attempts to double, study finds. This is huge. How can a 6-year-old get to a point where my life is so bad, I want to kill myself? That's happening. Because the honest truth is it really takes one person even at school that just nicks away at their soul. And that kid's worth saving, and that kid's worth talking to. And the irony is there's three that I hear, three that are going to apply here, key people that I would say are key potential rescuers of this. It's teachers, coaches, and youth pastors. On the front lines. It's these same ones that can destroy us too. One bad teacher, one coach that's just so demanding that crosses that line and destroys the heart. And yet it's funny, I watch a lot of, especially in my group, homeschool families who protect, and they go, here, go to that team over there, and the kid gets royally abused over there. I'm like, I don't understand. Why was that okay? It's because they weren't seeing it, they weren't thinking, they weren't noticing that there's harm there. Not everywhere, it's a person, yet they didn't realize it. Are your kids saying anything? No. That's where, are we asking the hard questions, or are we that parent that says, hey, my kids know I'm available, and they don't come to us? It's just really scary. The negative impact of technology, here's 5 areas. School performance is declining, plummeting, crashing, and burning. We don't even know what quality time is anymore. We actually, our van, that big van I'm driving out there, we bought this to go cross country. So we've been all over 2 summers ago, 25 states, tent camping. It's got stickers on the side with all the states the kids have been to. It has a big screen TV, like a pretty big TV. We, in that 25, 6-week trip, we opened it twice. It was interesting. It ended up becoming no. Because we had big enough space and seats that could barely touch each other. That helped the fighting. But they were engaged in other things. They were younger. But you realize it's easier to just have the babysitter. That's the screen. Especially if you're trying to talk up front. It's better to have them quiet. Shh. We like that almost. Is there a time and a place for that? Yeah. And one of the things we tell back when the kids were little, when we had a babysitter, it was like, whatever rules we have are out the window, you just keep them alive. So, screen time, anything like that. But then when we were there, it was a different setup. Because our goal there was that they enjoy our kids and our kids enjoy them. It's a different relationship versus us as parents. Less empathic. This is huge. I think we can just see it on social media. Angry folks. Not really sure what to do with that. It kind of scares me a little. It's helping my kids process elections. It's process people that hate other people, and we need to be processing some of this out loud, even the stuff that we might be wrestling with. Blurred boundaries is huge. We are the loving thing is boundaries, and if we don't set boundaries ourselves as parents, then we're not teaching them and not helping them. And I would say for many of our kids, they need you to set the boundary. That's what they're actually screaming for. You please help me know where that line is. I want you to help me because you're the adult, but they don't have the words or won't use the words to go there. And then the inside generation. I don't know, what's the future of the outdoors, if you will? The protectors of the outdoors. It's not going to be that. That's not going to be important. And I don't know about you, I kind of like it around here outside. The access to what we have here, the things that can be experienced. And I'm a different person when I'm out there experiencing it. My happy place is on a bike, motorcycle, not the pedal kind. And just anything whiny, twisty. That's my happy place. I jokingly say it because I'm not thinking about people's problems. I'm just trying to stay alive around the next corner. But it is. It's mine. And what's yours? It's actually one of those places that I find a solitude that I don't find very many other places. What's yours? Because if you don't have one, it's hard to pass that down to our kids. And what I wanted to kind of show you before we get into this handout that I have, and this will be kind of where we'll camp on and end and then do together here, is this model, or not a model, it's something I saw from this guy, warrior guy down in California, who's really loud and obnoxious and in other words, a cuss word basically, but the model was like, this is kind of exactly what I've been teaching and didn't see it this way. And so think about this way. We have past to present, and we have your work life. This is your working life. This is you living. And you're going through life, and the goal is that we actually improve our life, or that we do something great, good or great. This is some of that vision that we have, but also the cause to fight for, something bigger than myself. But here's a trigger for all of us, every single one of us. Something happens, and we're triggered. What's next? What's next for us? And there's this devolving, or life kind of crumbles a little bit. Fear and anger is a big one. Emotions get involved. And we start this process that we find ourselves in. Shame and guilt follows that. And then we end up in a place that I actually like the way he worded it. It's called the pit. And this is trauma. Now we've been harmed. Trigger happened, now we're harmed. And this is on the increase, if you will. But then we kind of pull ourselves up and we get back to here. And here's the issue is we actually think when we arrive back to where we started that we've actually improved. But we haven't. We're kind of back to where it's back to actually the status quo. I don't know about you, I'm not too excited about that. Actually, I'm kind of frustrated about that. That I don't want to be doing things, something happens, it sends me around some weird circle and I get out of it, but I'm nowhere better off. It's like, God, I know you're working, but I don't see it. I don't see movement, I don't see expansion, if you will. What do I do? Because I want this. The goal is anywhere along this line, we take a path, we take a detour, and we actually find a very different story. That's the goal. That maybe we have a trigger and we quickly realize what's going on, and we actually are up, out, and we're in a different story. We're in a different timeline almost. And it can happen anywhere. What's keeping us here in the middle? Like, what keeps kind of this thing as the hub? Oh, that word kind of scares me. Sedation. So what I want to ask for you is, so what is it that sedates you? For a whatever, kids, it is. I'm here, I'm on my phone, and I'm yell or there, and might look up, but everything here is more important. They've even done studies that show that if I talked to you this whole time with my phone in my hand, you would actually take me less seriously. There's just something about versus put it away. One of the hard things I've had to do is learning to, because my watch is always buzzing when there's a text message or something, to ignore it, even during class, which is hard sometimes. Because one time it was my wife, and she was calling, and she knows she can't get me during certain times. I just don't answer, even if it's her. And I did, and she had just hit a human being in a car, in a crosswalk. I've never heard my wife that panicked and that freaked out. It's like, yeah, nothing else matters. But some of us live constantly expecting that. I've got to be accessible at all times, at all moments, or the whole world will crumble. Wow, we're living in fear. It's like, good luck with that. What are those things that are going to help me get out of this? Actually get into a very different story. And so one of the things that I would challenge you to think about is, what is your sedation? What is your thing? If you think of your schedule and your habits, yours could even be work. One of the interesting things would be to have maybe even someone else do this, but have someone else come over here and ask your son or daughter and go, tell me about your mom, tell me about your dad. It's scary. It's one of the things I tell my students all the time, because I bring my kids to work a lot, and it's like, if you want to know how I'm doing, ask them. One day in class, I was teaching human sexuality, 50 students in the room, and I said something, my son in the front row raises his hand. I think he was like 11. And I go, Alex, yes? He goes, Dad, you don't do that. The whole class is like, whoa! Busted. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, let's talk about technology. I actually like my technology. I like putting this kind of stuff together, and playing around with stuff, and creating. Sometimes that's your job, sometimes that's a hobby. What is it? You disconnecting from your kids or your spouse. You call it your hobby, but it's an escape from the people that should be a priority. And if I think of the way Satan works, he wants to just sedate us. My personal picture of Satan is sitting back in a big Barca lounger, smoking a cigar, doing nothing. Because we're doing it just fine. Being distracted, not focused on the things you focused on, harming others, leading others into our same story. Ugh, that scares me. Because what I want when I teach my students even is, I want you to be dangerous for the gospel. I want you to be dangerous. I want my kids to not grow up and be these nice, sweet little kids. I want you to be someone that has such a passion and burden for something way bigger than yourself, that ironically you actually proudly die for it. That's hard to pray for, but that's, to me, that's incredible to live for. It would take us into a very different story. If you think of leveling this up, we find ourselves here in the new story, and then we find a trigger, and then something takes us down. And what's crazy is for some of us, a trigger can be a song. A song on the radio takes us back to that abuse, takes us back to that moment of loss or of pain, or it can be a smell, it can be you have a panic moment when the car slides and you remember that last car wreck, and your whole body just collapses inside, and this process starts all over again, and it's being able to catch it and go, whoa, 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 what's going on here? Versus letting, I would almost say, kind of the natural flow of it take you right back down. You're a mess again. Pick yourself back up. Got this. Wow, God's working. And I'm like, He is, but not there. Because we're stuck. So how can I be free? How can I be bigger than myself in a sense? That's how I think. That's how I teach my students to think. When I do counseling or coaching, my goal is to help you take whatever marriage you have and make it a second marriage. Make it a very different us. It's kind of sad that we settle. A marriage that's falling apart doesn't get to that point of falling apart overnight. It's decision after decision that just further and further apart. How do we time out, reset? So when you go home, and we'll go through this here next, when you go home, it isn't you walk in the house and you go, all right, screen's off the wall, let's take it out of the dump. No, that's not it. It's back to that word stewardship. Little things like, how do I help my son or daughter have access to something and learn to steward it? You don't just go to let's even say, go home to your 8-year-old, hand them the keys to the Porsche and say, have fun. No, that's not what we do. We teach them. Here's the key to the gun cabinet. Have at it. It's a process, and the irony is we hand them stuff just like access to your 9mm. Here's the access to the whole entire world on this tablet or this phone or this. Oh, there's all these locks on it. Great, they'll figure out how to get around it, or how to reset it. Or your Wi-Fi does, but they quickly found out the password of the neighbor's Wi-Fi and they're off to the races. The heart's not been grabbed. You're none the wiser till issues start coming up down the road. So we're going to walk through this. I think we have enough for everyone. If not, there's some couples. Someone want to pass it back for me? Thank you. So what this is the sheet that you have in front of you. If you want to download the PDF of this, I put it on my website, healinglives.com/tech, TECH. It'll be up there for the week or so, and then I'll pull it, but it's just a PDF download real quick. So healinglives.com, which is on that page, /TECH. First place to start, the dangers. So I want to walk through each of these sections for a second, and then I actually want us to spend some time talking. One of the things that you're going to do beyond today, I hope, is you're in relationships, you're in communities, you're in conversations with people. Your friends and your relationships, those become the people that you learn from when it comes to ideas. Okay, what worked for you for your 17-year-old? What worked for you for navigating this stronghold of pornography? Like, this becomes a real issue when it becomes a real issue, when it's something personal. And I'd say a lot of people don't know who to go to. Sometimes it's the person right there in your circle. Maybe they've actually dealt with it themselves. Maybe they've actually dealt with it with one of their kids. And what kind of dangers do we have? Here's some examples. Just to kind of get you thinking through some of that. You don't have to write them on there right now. You're going to do this in a minute. But it's to help you think through excessive texting. If that becomes something I want to prevent, if you will, then I'm going to put that on there as a potential danger. Some of you don't have that problem with your kids. You may need to go later, but that would be a big one. Truth about predators, malware, viruses, things that get opened up, identity theft, cyberbullying. These become points of conversation for you to think about. And so this is the starting point. Identify how technology can damage or hurt you or your family. You sit down with your family and you start talking through with your kids, with a blank one of these maybe, and you start, what are some things that we need to be careful about? What are some stories you heard from friends that tap into them? And from that data, you're helping them kind of put this together. Then, the tools piece. What are the tools that we actually have at our disposal? And so here's a list. We have firewalls, virus protection, internet filters, parental controls, TV programming locks, pop-up blockers. We have these kinds of things that can help. So you start there. You can do these kind of things, the prevention, protection things. But education one's huge. Now, one of the things that I've learned in our Boy Scout troop is we can actually have the boys, because it's boy-led. The parents are kind of behind or step back. And so we've had it very boy-led with the parents step back pretty far. It's funny how they keep coming up with the same things. You realize we need to step in and go, what about this? Oh, that's a great idea. They need some nudges in different directions and some guidance. And they're going to think from their 11, 12, 13-year-old limited experience. Part of our job is to provide them a lot more ideas. It still can be led by them, but now we've provided them a lot more options. It's the education piece too. It's talking through what happened if. Teach children about the important role of intimacy. This is actually, this piece here, this is what my book's all about. It's the biblical sexual ethic. Is mom and dad, we need to have one first. And then I need to be able to help you, my child, build yours intentionally. The world's trying to build it for you. Everyone else actually has an opinion about what you should or shouldn't do. And so I can't remember if I said it last time, but like California mandated that all kindergartens teach all 15 genders. Because they're behind the times, because Facebook has 72, so 15's better. Anyway, crazy world. And so it's easy to get mad about that and get upset about that, and it's like, or if your child's going to that school, think about the age of this. Kindergarten is what age? 5 and 6. How many times I hear from parents, oh, my son or daughter is not old enough for that. Okay, mom. Okay, dad. They're not old enough to hear your perspective from a biblical perspective, so send them off over here and let them hear it from so not biblical perspective. And they do it all every day. Not even thinking about it. Whoa! No mom, no dad. At 5, we're talking about this stuff. So that, this would be my best case scenario, when they do bring out the 15 genders, the kid gets sent to the principal's office for being a smart aleck and laughing, and now you deal with the fallout of that. But what's actually happened is there's been a seed planted of a perspective. Now, what I want for you is that actually you've planted a biblical sexual ethic ahead of other perspectives. And so they're actually bringing those perspectives in through a filter that you've actually given them. Of what is intimacy? What is sexuality? What is a healthy picture of marriage? Even if your marriage isn't too great, a lot of times what it is saying, guys, it's not what we have right now. We're struggling. Being honest with that is better than faking it. No, we shouldn't yell like that. No, we shouldn't do that. No, we shouldn't treat each other like that. And I hope that you'll learn and you're teaching them. Day in and day out, we actually are teaching them whether it's intentional or not. That pornography is something that is there. It's everywhere. How are you going to steward that? That if you see something, what are you going to do? You're prepping them so that when they do, they actually have a different response than the typical response. Most of the responses I hear is appalled and then, curiosity. What if they are actually naturally curious, but go, yeah, but that's a boundary I want to keep. I've already decided that. When I was dating my wife, she owned a house. And I was in her house and all through her house. What's the one room I never went into? Never walked across that threshold. It was an intentional decision of there's nothing good that can happen. Well, lots that's good, but nothing good in this timing that can happen in there. I remember one day she said, "Can you grab me something from my room?" I'm like, "No, I'm not going in there. I'm being a jerk, I guess, but no, I'm not going in there because that's a decision I made, non-emotionally over here, so that when the emotions were involved, And by the way, you can do plenty on the couch. Anyway, that's another subject. But it doesn't protect from anything. Like, I still don't understand how kids go, well, I accidentally got pregnant in the backseat. Like, how did you get into the backseat from the... Wow. It took a lot of decisions to get there. Well, it was decisions in my emotions and my operating system, not actual choice. I need to be able to... I don't want... Because I can see the consequences and I choose different. Really important. Helping children understand procreation, boundaries, healthy sexuality, good pictures, bad pictures. That's that book it's on Amazon. I can't remember the author's name, but we've had on our kids' shelves. It's really, really helpful tool. And this is also, as I said on there, also age appropriate. Really important to have age appropriate conversations. But here's my rule of thumb. Whatever you think is age appropriate, back it up a few years. It probably needed a little earlier than you think. That's really what I'm seeing, basically. He's not ready, she's not ready. It's like, beg to differ. But by the time we have the talk, get into those, the kids are basically saying, so what do you want to know, Mom? They're in a different place. It's kind of scary at times. Really important. And then the rules here. This is just a starting point. TV and computers in high traffic areas. If you see something inappropriate, click on the back button. Receive pictures or mean messages, do not reply, and tell your parents. Never open attachments. I will have an open device policy. These are not prescriptive. This is to kind of get you thinking. What are some of those things that you could do, that you could implement, that actually would help you protect your family and have a conversation? And then you see the very end of that, very bottom part of this, is signatures. What if, and this was just a suggestion or an idea, what if you then had everyone sign it? And then you come back to it, have it on the fridge maybe. Could this work? Yes. Will it work for every family? No. The piece that I see working is when these conversations they're not just an event where you put this together and they don't have it again. It's day in and day out. The fact is, this technology is not going away. It is an amazing tool. So how can we steward it? How can we better lead our kids, help them make wise decisions? Because we want them around. We want them making wise decisions. There's my bride. That's the best day, one of the best days of my life, baptizing Alex. Got to baptize all 3 of my kids. See, he's wearing a Harley shirt. Got to raise him right. Then when Blaze was born, my second born, he's our crazy boy, hence the name Blaze. Kind of didn't know that. God, it's hilarious. And then my little girl. See, this becomes why I do what I do too. This isn't me just speaking from like my education. This is speaking from, I'm a dad right there with you guys who wants to love them and prepare them to make wise decisions, live in this world, know how to use technology, know how to steward this difficult thing that we're just now seeing the potential negative impact, mental health and the like. Let's go ahead and spend, where are we at on time? Actually, let's do this instead, because you can talk later. I want you to talk to me for a few minutes. What are some of the questions that you have that we can spend some time talking about, and then we'll see if we want to get into that here present. Yes?
I promised my 12-year-old I would ask. She keeps asking to get an app called TikTok. And I've done some research on it, and I told her absolutely not. And she said, would you please ask you about it, because she swears up and down that a lot of her friends at school have this app, and that she wants it because they do, and it's safe, and they removed all the bad stuff off it, and people can't post bad stuff. No.
What do you know about TikTok? Anybody?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
It's dangerous, any of this stuff. But it's not about the actual app. Facebook is something that can have stuff on it, even though they try to do a good job of keeping stuff off. Instagram, same thing. Is there a time and a place where you let them steward some of those decisions and get the apps that they want? I would say yes, at the appropriate age. What age should that be?
30.
80. How many of you have actually made bad decisions? Rhetorical. How many of you have made bad decisions about apps that you've put on? Fact is for some of these apps, a lot of these apps, it takes not too many clicks to be in some dangerous places, and you're watching stuff and looking at stuff you shouldn't. And if you're doing that, imagine what your kids are doing, even just out of sheer curiosity. So no, I would not. I think one of the questions too about Snapchat. Why is it so bad? And they actually were sued by the government when they first came out because of how bad it was. These things that could go video and then go away, and the lack of accountability. They've changed a little, but it's still this thing that is being used for negative things. Is it bad in and of itself? No. A lot of kids use it all the time. A lot of this then is not teaching about the individual apps, it's about the heart. Where are they crossing the line is when they're snapping pictures of themselves and sending it. I mean, we have the weirdest generation right now, and some of you are in it too. There's more pictures of you than anything else. It's been interesting, different people that have joined our Boy Scout troop, and you add them on Facebook, and you're scrolling through pictures going, is there anyone else in the family? It's all pictures of themselves. That says a lot. It says a lot about, a lot of things. Maybe insecurities, story. So, teaching about that, talking about that. At Facebook, you can get at what age?
Whenever you want.
Yeah.
Well, if you lie about your age.
Exactly.
13.
At 13, it's actually where you can get, and a lot of our friends have done that. They've lied about their kids' age and gotten them an account early. Just at least stick to the rules of Facebook. But even at 13, doesn't mean they have to have it.
What is your viewpoint on cell phones for high school kids during school hours?
So one of the things we've actually done in schools and across the country, a lot of schools have turned into this kind of a techie environment. We're going to use cell phones even in class. They already have them, let's engage with them. That is all starting to shift. A lot of schools are getting rid of smart boards and getting rid of a lot of the tech stuff. There's certain kind of trends of getting away from using a lot of iPads and things like that. They're tools, and they're tools that can be misused. Do they need something to type on? Yes. Laptop, can the access go too far? Yes. Those are all, scares me with the access to, the lack of control when you send a computer home with this child and you don't know what that environment is at home. Phones at school, I've heard from some of you, my kid needs to be able to be access to know when to be picked up, or there's certain kinds of scenarios. Wouldn't it, and this is just a thought, wouldn't it be better to maybe say, we're going to have maybe a overarching policy that then we're going to make a few exceptions for and have a few situations for, versus Because what are they accessing during school? What are they doing with it during school? Yeah, what are they watching and doing?
When you're...
Yeah, social media.
Social media.
Yeah, social media. Do they need that?
Or playing games.
Or playing games. So think about what's happening even to the brain. They're in this situation, even a social situation. One of the things that I see a trend with kids is, too much social. This is my leisure. And this is my solitude. And they actually think that that's rejuvenating. Very dangerous, actually. Are there maybe a few exceptions to that? Yes. Seen that with even autism. Like having certain boundaries where they can't escape and pull away can be huge to kind of re-empower and re-engage. So it's hard to make the blanket statements like that. But school policies, those are scary, but I don't have to worry about that. I don't yeah, a lot of parents have an opinion. Yeah.
Are we ready for another question?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, this is very, very broad. I realize this, but in all the tech, I mean, what about trauma? Trauma from early childhood, abuse, that kind of thing. How do these things work together? I missed your first class last week. But I mean, I know it's a huge question, but there's delays and there's, I don't know, just maybe not because of.
Okay, so I spent hours talking about just the trauma piece. The numbers that we have out there, even with just the one little piece that I would pull away that I focus in on is sexual abuse. And it's really, the self-report is 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4, 1 in 6 guys. I would say it's 1 in 2 women. Because what I'm finding personally is it's way more than just someone violated my space, me, my body touched. A lot of what I'm seeing is that emotional relationship where that little girl was made a surrogate wife to the dad and no lines were ever crossed. There's something not right about it. The young man who became, mom's confidant because dad was absent. And there was no line that was crossed, and any of us would see. But yet I see them later on and go, "You look like you've been abused. We can't find anything in your story." And I'm starting to see, yes, and I'd end up saying the majority of people do, and that we're not accounting well enough. It's like the foster care system is just now catching up from the last maybe 2 years, going, maybe we should have people informed about trauma. The amount of kids I know that were abused by every kid that's come through their doors is horrifying, and the parents are clueless. They don't know. Trauma is tremendous, and we've got to be able to go there. What I'm finding with a lot of therapists, it's hard to find one, which you work in that area, right? What's your name again? Abe. He therapist, works in that area. We need more people that will actually go there and talk about those kind of things. The impact of social media, it scares me to think about what it's doing to our children and to us even. What I'm seeing college and up is this place I can escape and I can go to. It becomes my safe place so that I don't have to engage. Keep me small, keep my life in a lane, keep my head down, exist. What do I want to do? I want to come blow that mess up. I want to see them grow and blossom and have an incredible life and desire and actually sin some more and make mistakes and grow. Because what we've done even in Christendom, let's just keep you obeying. We've got behavior modification coming into the church and keep people doing the right thing, and heart's not changed at all. What I personally believe about most of our physical health and mental health issues is it's back to trauma. Another little sliver that you could just pull out is incest. The amount of actual sexual perpetration from a parent. Now, speaking of trauma, we talk about stranger danger. You heard what the percentage is of trauma perpetration is from a stranger? We're preparing them for 9%. 91% of people that are crossing that line are someone that's already been vetted. Family members, close friend, beloved family member, beloved, person that comes over all the time, neighbor, pastor. It's people right in front of us that we would defend. So being able to actually help prepare our young people to know when to say no, and you think of even just this scenario. If little kids actually grabbed, which again we're talking about 99%, and all of a sudden they disappear, how often do we not hear a word? Like they're not. We've taught them to don't talk to strangers, don't make a scene. Versus if someone ever does this, this, and this to you, you flip a lid. We coach them on it so that when that moment comes, their default is to make a big scene, and most likely that person will let go. Same in our home. We vetted them, they've come in our home, now they're in our space, and they're safe, and all of a sudden they reach out and do something that crosses a line. It's flight, fight, or freeze. And when we freeze, new story starts. Trauma is held in the body doesn't let that go. We fast forward, and I'm talking to a 40-something-year-old who's never, ever talked about what happened when they were 15. And then it's cool to watch. They start talking and they start going there. Not going back into the harm. We've learned that that's not necessarily part of the key. It's addressing, that, in a sense, the harm in the body. And then they finally tell their spouse, and their spouse is like, huh, now you make so much more sense. And then it's like a new marriage begins. Satan loves if he can just keep us small, keep us in a lane, keep us head down. How can we actually get that head up and get big, have big dreams, have big visions, have a cause to fight for? And that would be my summary, simple, short answer. Could talk on hours on that one, but yes.
I'm sure other people have realized this too, that the older our kids get, the lonelier as parents we become, and people tend to not share openly what their kids are struggling with because it's not like potty training. You know, it's not how many stars did they get on their sticker chart. Like, this is tricky stuff, and you don't want to share your kids' struggles, but at the same time, I feel like I would want to know if my kid, like, I give all of you carte blanche that if you see my kids doing anything or hear from your kids that my kid's doing anything, please tell me. But I have found that not to be the case with a lot of people. And I'm reading my kid's phone and I'm thinking either their parents are seeing this and are ignoring it, or they're not reading their group texts and they're not seeing these comments and how do we navigate like doing this as a community together and having that ability to speak up and speak into and without crossing boundaries, but like I would want to know if somebody found out something about my kid, because I would hate to have somebody not say something and then it spiral and it could have been handled earlier on. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, the thing is not everyone wants to know.
Right.
And that's so hard. And you kind of played out the scenario I mentioned earlier of, like, you tell our kids, we're here for you.
Right.
And the honest truth is, I put the invitation out to even college students. Our home's open, come anytime. They never come. You got to say, come. If you're not okay, come. But the word that comes to mind is permission. There's certain people that, because of relationship, they've given permission. We need to stay engaged with our kids. We need to look at their phone. Just assume others aren't. Should we call out someone else in that group text? That's a tough one. Are you responsible for the fallout, like for their response? No, you're actually not. And I'd rather us speak up more and be the one that speaks up than actually, I wish I had said something and now he or she's dead. Now there's actually, yeah.
I just did an assignment on this actually today, and I forget the term that they called it, but institutes of higher education are implementing character development within their freshmen, like their incoming freshman classes, and something that they stand by is that it's kind of like we're all in this together. So if I hear that someone's child is doing something negative, bullying or
protect each other. And one of those ways is by, something happens and you knew about it and you could have prevented it, you hold some responsibility for those.
Which is good in theory. Like, I agree 100%. Practice is very different. And the truth is we tend to not. So a lot of it, even for the school, how you create the community here, it's intentionally one by one doing things like that. And did I have permission? And was that received well? There are certain people that will not, because like you said, some come from some rough places and don't have good relationships. They do not feel safe. You even have to account for those. How do we actually engage in a community like this? We should actually have each other's back. Actually, it's the definition of even friendship. It blows my mind how friendship, especially you look at a sports team, friendship means I have your back and I will lie for you and I will cheat for you and I will never, ever, ever tell your secrets. Till death do us part, I guess? I don't know. It's kind of a creepy ethos.
Yeah. I had some concern because I was thinking campus rape, sexual assault in general, kind of like those, people hide things for each other.
Yeah, they do.
And I think to go along with that, you also have to teach them that there's boundaries for how much you're supposed to invest your own self into helping someone else. So I grew up with a fixer,
Yeah.
and I used to invest my whole life into trying to fix other people, and it just consumed me. And so I'm finally learning that you have to, there's boundaries there, and you have to realize that sometimes it's on them, and so I think there's also that line that you have to teach.
Well, that's where, with my book, I can't say that, the workbook walks through helping you build your biblical sexual ethic, walks through human sexuality kind of 101 and the neuroscience piece, and helping you decide what you believe. What does Scripture say about some of these things? Helps you think through that. That's a critical starting point for us. And then when we're teaching our kids, and you think about that model, it starts with us, and it's our kids. That's it. You are not responsible for someone else's kids, in a sense. One of the TV shows I would actually say to watch, but don't watch, is 13 Reasons Why. I get a lot of pushback when I say that out loud. But I promise probably most of your teens have already binge watched the whole thing, if they have access to it. When it came out last year, 2 years ago I guess, I asked my class, 1 week after it came out, over half, I think it was 89% of them had already binge watched the whole thing, college students. What we're finding is the trauma, the damage of that show has been those that watch it and then go kill themselves because there was no place to talk. We need to go there. We don't wait for them to come to us. We've got to go there. There's things they're watching, there's things they're consuming, and it's messing with them. Because that show is terrible, and it's too true. It's very graphic. The last episode is a rape scene. Good luck getting through that. But it's a very good picture of 13 people who saw little slivers but couldn't see the whole. And then I tried starting the second season and I couldn't get through it. That was just horrible. Back to these too soap opera-y. But our kids are consuming a lot of stuff. How can we, and again this is a hard one to say, stay ahead of that? Another one is a movie with Adam Sandler in it called Men, Women, and Children. Came out kind of under the radar. I think it's actually a Redbox, or was, and it shows a husband and wife that are discontented, and they go to AshleyMadison.com and they both have affairs. It shows kids texting each other, or sexting each other, and all this really sick relationships, and all the stuff the kids don't know. It shows that mom who has control of her daughter's every social media account, and has small groups in her home teaching moms and how you can love your children, and if you really love them, you keep them away from all this bad stuff, and her daughter sneaking off and doing things that she doesn't know about. And it is an incredible, whoever produced this, wow. Because I'd say it's an indictment on us. That we're not staying ahead of our children. We're miles behind. How can I engage with where they're at? Not keep them away from all this stuff in some sense, but engage with where they're at. Well, this show has bad language in it. Great. How many F words did they hear in class yesterday? And it's funny how we have some of those discrepancies, if you will. And I know there's never a cuss word uttered here on this campus. Just kidding. They're hearing it, and so careful with focusing in on that, which is me. I'm the kid who Dad said crap, and I went crying, Dad, cuss. And so I've had a lot to grow in. And then I married my wife, whose nickname for me was Dumbass. And then she decides, well, when we have kids, I probably shouldn't call you that, and so she stopped. And then last Christmas, they found a game at Target called Dumbass, or Smartass. And my kids just think that's hilarious. And, what kind of monsters are we creating? Remember, there are 3 experiments. That's what they are. So are yours, with every piece of social media, every video game they play, and how they interact then with peers. Through video games, the conversations they're having, if they're using the headsets. I've seen a lot of kids just ripped to shreds. And the parents had no idea. They were sitting there playing a game, and whoever was in their ear was just... That 16-year-old who started dating, and he was a good guy. He just nicked away her soul, belittling her little by little, just a little bit, to where a year later she's not someone you would even recognize. I see that happen over and over and over. It's happening right in front of us. We need to be able to ask those hard questions. We need to be able to talk about pornography, talk about masturbation. You need a theology of masturbation. That's a hard one. Just say no or stop it. It's not going to get it. Not going to cut it. Being able to go into some of these things and help them wrestle with, well, your friends are doing this and they say this, and what are you going to do? What would you do if using even this form here and talking through stuff, using it to educate and again engage in conversation? The goal is that we are ahead of them and walking them into adulthood, and then we're letting go. But one of the scary things I actually tell parents a lot is your parenting of your children ends when they're about 10, 11, 12. Think about your child right now. When they hit about 10, 11, 12, kind of right before that hormone bath, they're a little more teachable, and then they're so not. As they enter adolescence, you're seeing the kind of monster you created. You're seeing the product. And only one thing really alters things from there, and it's more trauma. Careful what you pray for. So if I don't shift to this point, so if I'm still parenting my 13-year-old like they're 8, this is where rebellion comes from. This is where some of the stuff that we, kind of the behind the scenes or secret, come from. It's when we start treating them. Are there moments that they need to be treated that way? Maybe. But I remember even when my kids hit 10, 11, talking to them going, you know what? You're, in all potential ways, you're a young adult. You're not really, and I know that, but think about the way you think. I don't tell you how to think anymore. You have your own thoughts. You have your own beliefs, even at 10. And we engage in conversation, molding that. What I call that in my book is micro-conversations. It's little ones, but here's actually a little nuance of that. It's not always a conversation. What is it? Conversation implies a lot of times it's planting a seed. So I'm going to bring up a topic, I'm going to lay it out there, and they don't say a word. Okay, we'll keep going, we'll come down here, we'll bring up the topic again and lay it out there. I'm planting seeds. I'm actually trying to be preemptive to what the culture is going to be doing. Saturday I spent 3 hours at a house up in Portland. One of my clients is sitting there with a teenage daughter who's dealing with gender issues. I think the daughter actually probably said a few sentences in those few hours. When she got up to leave and I'm talking to the mom, I was like, so was that a waste of time, me engaging with her and her not engaging back? I was like, that's exactly what you need to be doing. And then my plan actually is, I will probably do very little with her. It's now training the parents. You need to engage in these. You need to go there over over and over and over, planting seeds and challenging ideas, and when something comes up, using that TV show, using that scene on TV, a scene in that movie, that news story, using things in our world to go, what would you do there? How would you handle that? How would you process that? Micro conversations, or again, maybe even mini lectures, but later on they play it out. Your son or daughter will grow up and become their version of themselves. Are you going to be someone that's influenced them well, or kind of just haphazardly? That's kind of the question, I guess you could say. Yeah. I could talk for hours. So. Yes, sir.
I wanted to mention that we do have Red Web, so we all have contact information for all of each other here at school. So there is, at least for our kids, I would welcome any parent to, let us know, and I think that would be very good for us to band together when we see information and say, hey guys, you know this is happening with your kid, and I would appreciate that. I'm sure a lot of us.
It's so important to have that kind of community where you actually can trust each other. How can that go wrong with one person? So that's hard. That's why it's almost we get tentative. I would want anyone to err on the side of telling and being rejected than not telling. Honestly, that's part of the. I would never want any woman I know to have to go through the legal system when it comes to post rape. It's so sad. I think they're learning, and I think some things are changing, but it's going to be a while. But it increases the not reporting, the not getting the actual help you need. Or what we do as kids, teens especially, well, I'm fine. Okay, I guess they're fine. I promise they're not fine. There's certain things that when that happens, you're not fine. You're finding a new me. And you don't just find that overnight. You don't find that in a few weeks either. Actually, it sometimes is a lifelong pursuit of searching for. Some of us are in the middle of that. A lot of us are probably in the middle of that. That there's harm that happened to us as a kid, neglect, abuse, other things that happened that I'm still not quite okay with. And one of my key moments is my mom's first bout of breast cancer as a little kid. We lived in Costa Rica at the time. I remember it very vividly, and then I have 6 months of complete memory loss. I have no idea what happened. From what my dad says, the chemo was such a nightmare, it's good that I don't remember. You don't walk away from stuff like that. But I remember when a volcano erupted in Chile. I grew up in Chile, missionary kid. That was like, cool, and we actually drove out to it. And there's other things that are kind of, I probably shouldn't have done that. Chasing tornadoes in college. I was in Arkansas, and dumb things we do and survive. But there's things that happen to us that shape every bit of who we are, and how we see the world, and how we see God, and how we see relationships, and marriage, and parenting. And the truth is, all of us, the fact that we're even here is we care, we're engaged, hopefully, or we're trying to be. You're also psychotically busy. And things happen, and things fall through the cracks. So being able to rely on a few is critical. Our few has become, of all places, our Boy Scout troop. Those dads for me. Then I have 2 men that I meet with very regularly who look forward to their input and their encouragement, their challenge to me. That relationship piece is critical. Finding that leisure, the things that you can do either as a family or helping them learn something. And then what does solitude look like for you? Very critical. Thanks for having me. It's been an honor. Anything I can do, if you fill out those cards, I'll be sending stuff out, and anything that's of interest, go for it through email and my website, healinglives.com. You can fill out the form there for counseling, coaching, speaking, different things like that. But I'd love to be able to serve your family more. I do a lot of in-home stuff too, dealing with whole family to serve. I'm thankful.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.